Welcome to another Seidokan Saturday. Today we're going to talk about punching, okay? Most people think they know how to punch, and on one level, a punch is just a punch. You throw your fist out in the air and make contact with something. A punch is just a punch. But I've watched enough sports celebrations where Brett Favre or Jovan Nokovic or somebody, Tiger Woods, throws their fist up in the air in celebration, and what you see is this. And that will get you all kinds of busted up. Even if I bend my thumb in from there, that will get me all kinds of busted up. So, proper punching has a lot more to it. And also, the other side of that is the actual delivery system of the punch, which is the movement of my arm and body to coordinate. So, while on the one hand, a punch is just a punch, as you're learning it, a punch is a component of many things. We have to curl the fingers in, fold the thumb over the top two knuckles, make sure the pinky is held tight, align the wrist properly so that we're striking with the first two knuckles of the wrist, making sure that we get proper hip rotation, whether we're doing traditional karate from the hip, whether we're coming from the guard. There's a rotation and timing that rotation at the end of the punch, or should I choose a standing fist or a reverse punch or an uppercut or which punch? What's my stance doing? How do I get my hip to turn? Do I rise up on the heel like a boxer? Do I simply explode from the hips as we generally teach in karate? When I finish the punch, do I lock out or do I pull it back? When I pull it back, does my arm... So you can see we could go on, and there's so much to proper punching. But once you've trained and you've done enough repetitions, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 or more repetitions, then, just like at the beginner level, a punch is just a punch. So let's go over a couple of the basics. Number one is the formation of the fist. So we start by folding the fingers down into the crease of the hand, tightly. The thumb then comes up along the side, and my thumb knuckle here bends right at that position so that my thumb is covering the first two fingers at the second phalange, okay, at the second joint. My thumb serves to hold in my index finger and my middle finger, which is where our striking surface of the punch will be. In addition to that, we're going to slightly evert or turn the wrist outward so that those two knuckles line up straight along the radius and the ulna. Okay, so proper fist formation, tight squeeze. We also don't want to let this pinky come loose. This is what I call sometimes I refer to it as the badass fist. You got your pinky up but you'll see, because boxers can tape and wrap their hands and pat it with a glove and a pillow before they hit, they want to keep their arms loose, and so you'll frequently see boxers punching with their hands here when they're shadow boxing, because they're not really having to be concerned about that. Even with all the wrapping and protection, it's not uncommon to get a break in this carpal right here, or metacarpal right here, or in the carpal, which is your pisiform, your small bone of the wrist. It's not uncommon to fracture that, even with the wrapping and the glove on, if my pinky is loose in the punch, and there is a common name for that fracture, which is the boxer's fracture. We don't have that luxury in self-defense and in karate, so we want to make sure that everything is tight. My pinky is so tight down that the muscle at the side of the hand is hard, and I'm making my knuckles white, and my thumb is squeezing in, and everything is tightly compact. The word for fist in Japanese is genkotsu, which is actually a combination of the base word ken for fist and kotsu, which is bone. So we're literally compacting all of our bones to make this fist, okay? That's the first element of proper punching. The problem arises when we're new and we're inefficient. When I squeeze my fist, everything up the kinetic chain through my forearm into my biceps, triceps, and shoulder also gets tight, which then is going to slow down my punch. So the dichotomy, the juxtaposition is the tightness of the fist with the relaxation of everything else that's throwing the punch, okay? So we've made our tight fist. Now in karate, typically we start with the hands here. There are several reasons for it, and it's one of those things in karate that's much maligned and joked about. You're never going to fight somebody from here. This does a couple of things. If you go to Funakoshi's writings, when he first came to Japan from Okinawa, he talks about the hand pulling back actually having something in it when it pulls. And if I pull somebody here and secure them tightly to my side, using my lat, elbow, back muscles to pull them in, that helps me hold them so that I'm accelerating them toward me. It doesn't make me punch harder. And that's one of the myths, is that if I pull faster, I punch harder. No, I can punch just as hard without this having to come down here. But there's still a rotation of the shoulders when we make that punch. What this does, in addition to grabbing someone and pulling them in, is it helps me connect to my gamaku, my waist, which is what's going to move, as I talked about in the first Seidokan Saturday, or the second one on hip rotation. It's what's going to help me connect here to move. And by connecting here, it also keeps me from leaning my body forward and compromising my balance and my face into my opponent. So there are a lot of elements for why we do this. None of them have to do with producing more power because of the pulling hand itself, but they do help us connect with the center of the body. They help us pull somebody in and remind us that in real self-defense, we're usually in close quarter combat. If I'm far enough that I can't grab somebody and pull them in, then I'm also far enough that I can turn and get out of dodge. So that's, in short, why we're bringing our hands here. There's one other thing which distinguishes a punch from a swing. One of the things in common street fight vernacular is throwing hands. If I'm just throwing my hands, that's a swing. It is a type of punch, but it's a subset. The punch should come from center of the body with rotation and straight out. So once we have our good fist, once we've connected to our gamaku or our koshi, our waist, our hip area, first thing we're going to do is we're going to start by moving my fist directly toward my target. Now, if my fists move toward my target, but my elbow comes out, again, in physics, we have what are called vectors. A vector is a direction and a line and an amplitude of force. So how much power is going in what direction? If I have a lot of power going this way, but I also have gravity pulling this way, then the arrow falls. Even a bullet shot from a gun after a certain distance falls. Gravity is going to have its effect. So on my vector of my punch, if my elbow goes out, that means whatever power was in my shoulder and some of my hip is also pushing outward, and which means I'm losing forward momentum. Now that's okay for a swing or an overhand right or an overhand left, but in a punch, we want to keep this straight so that my elbow, if somebody came behind me and just pushed my elbow, boom, it would shoot it forward. Big push on my elbow, boom. And that happens with my forearm acting as an arrow coming down the side of the bow and straight. If you've ever practiced with a bow and arrow, you know if you shoot it offline, the arrow goes all sorts of funky directions, okay? So, tight fist, connection to the waist, straight, straight, straight. Now to facilitate the pulling in, notice this hand, the opposite, pulling my opponent toward me, or his arm, or his wrist, or his gi, or his hair, or whatever. I'm pulling him toward me with my elbow down. Try pulling something this way. Not nearly as strong as if I pull in close to the center of my body. So they work together. Straight out, straight in. So at the midpoint, my elbows are both touching my ribs. As I continue forward with my right hand, my left hand pulls back, and toward the end, they both rotate together, and I'm aiming straight forward with the two knuckles of my fist. My radius and ulna have locked rotation over each other here, which locks my bones in. Stronger position. Again, if my elbow's out and up, I've opened up the sabaku, the armpit area, which if you hit under there, the ribs are exposed, very painful. So I lock that down, I connect to my lats. My lats are part of my core because they connect to my back, and the fist moves in a straight line. Now, every Okinawan Japanese karate teacher I've ever learned from, witnessed, seen, gone to a seminar with, taken class from, every single one teach this. And yet you'll still see, even high-ranking masters, when they go fast, it's very hard to do. And you'll see this kind of emotion when you're going fast. And they lock down at the end, but they're losing some here. It's really hard to do, even for advanced high-ranking masters. So don't feel badly, because it's not uncommon if you can't do it correctly. But ideally, and there is no perfect world in real fighting, but ideally, I want all my power coming from center, my elbows pass, everything goes straight, my punch comes directly to the center. Coming in, squeeze, tight, fist, final rotation, okay? We'll get into where and when the contact. Some people say you make contact here and then drive through with a push. Some make contact right at the last 2 inches. Not going to worry about that too much. You can study that more, but that's beyond what we want to talk about here. But mostly just learn to move in a straight line. Now when we connect that with my stance and my hips, this generates the power, drives out, finishes, and relocks. Generates the power, drives out, relocks. And you can see my elbow is not winging out, and I'm staying straight in line on my center with my body. Okay? Hip rotation, solid feet, tight fist, straight forearm from elbow to fist going directly toward my opponent during the entire punch. Okay? If you learn this one punch correctly, within it you'll have seiken Tsuki, which is the fully extended straight fist, seiken, straight fist. At the halfway point, you'll have urazuki, the back punch, which can become also the uppercut. At the halfway point, we have urazuki. At about the 3/4 extension, we have the standing fist, tatezuki, which some systems will change the thumb position for here. Ishinru, for example. Okay? But keeping it here, we have urazuki, tatezuki, seiken-zuki. Okay? Back, upside down punch, ura, back punch. Thrust punch or vertical punch, straight punch. Back, vertical, straight. Back, vertical, straight. Back, vertical, straight. And we can move the hip with each one. This is perfectly in line with the Chinese concept of what's called the folding hand, where I would hit with the fingers, then fold into the four-knuckle fist, then fold into the full fist, then fold into the wrist, then move to the elbow, hitting in rapid succession. We find that same concept in a properly thrown seiken-zuki. Practice punching. It's karate, empty hand or China hand, not kara ashi, not empty foot. So punching is your first, most powerful, most direct line of defense. Takes a lot of time to perfect, but definitely worth the effort putting in the time and the practice. Keep practicing hard. Seiken-zuki, good luck, and we'll see you on the next Seidokan Saturday. Keep practicing.